All right, welcome back into the 411 on Wrestling podcast. I'm your host, Blake Lovell, and yes, we're back here after a short hiatus, and good time to come back, although for some people, maybe an interesting time when you think about everything that's going on right now in the world of professional wrestling. We're coming off of WrestleMania, and that is not the big topic at this point because Andrew Thompson is my guest from Post Wrestling, and everyone who's listened to this podcast before knows we've had Andrew on several times. And Andrew, welcome in. And let me say this, when you and I decided to schedule this podcast, we had no idea what we were going to wind up talking about, did we? We were expecting to talk a lot of WrestleMania and maybe the fallout, which we'll still do some of that, but we have a little bit bigger discussion here on our hands too.
Had no idea what was coming, but yeah, man, Blake, it's always a pleasure to do these podcasts with you. Like, have we spoken about it privately? It's always fun to do these. I always enjoy when we get to hop on these podcasts, man. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, it's definitely quite the long day, man. Unfortunately, a lot of people lost their jobs, but I think a lot of people are seeing the upside of what could come out of this once these people get past their 90-day no compete.
Yeah, absolutely. And obviously, I'm sure most people listening to this already know, but it was release day in WWE for the second straight year on the exact same day. And we'll get to that here in a second. But yes, the list, at least as of right now, Andrew and I are recording on Thursday night. The list is Samoa Joe, Mickie James, Billie Kay, Peyton Royce, Bo Dallas, Wesley Blake, Kalisto, Tucker, Chelsea Green, and I think Mojo Rawley was a late addition to that list. So a pretty noteworthy group here, Andrew. And as we'll go through, most of these and kind of discuss maybe what we see, and we can probably group some of these in together. But let's start with the big one. I think this was the one that probably caught most people by surprise, and that was Samoa Joe. Someone who, as we know, has been used in WWE in a more, non-in-ring role here recently. We've talked about the injuries before and him being sidelined for a bit, but, they've used him in commentary. They've used him in different interview roles and that type of stuff. And I thought he just did such a great job in the, non-wrestling stuff in terms of him not actually being in the ring, like his interviews, his commentary. I thought he brought just a lot for them, but Andrew, you and I are both going to agree on this. My guess is, and look, this is total speculation on my part, but we've seen this before where maybe WWE doesn't want to clear someone to return to the ring, maybe due to injuries and such. And look, again, as I'm saying, pure speculation on my part, but I don't know if that played a role here or not. But I could see certainly a scenario where maybe that was the case and maybe he just wanted a fresh start elsewhere. Or the more, I guess, sort of mind-boggling one is that WWE maybe just did not see a spot for Samoa Joe moving forward, which I don't know how I could even figure out a way to explain that one, to be honest.
Yeah, like you just said, I don't think anything has been, confirmed as far as like his reasoning behind his departure. Like it could be either Joe wanting out or WWE, just like you said, saying that they don't have a spot for him right now. Which I also think is kind of crazy. I think a lot of people were kind of thinking, maybe post WrestleMania, Joe will pop up on SmackDown and go after Roman Reigns and insert him right into the title picture and stuff like that. But yeah, man, Samoa Joe has been a great asset to WWE on the broadcast side. Like he really added a lot of stuff to the Raw commentary team. He really freshened that team up, and I think it's going. I think it would. I think it would have did ad non-vert some good if he would have had Samoa Joe by his side for commentary. I think Byron and Corey are going to do a good job, but Samoa Joe just like, dude, he is like very like he's one of those dudes you could plug everywhere, obviously in the ring, but he really showed out since he started doing commentary. And I think Samoa Joe can still go in the ring. Like I saw people like calling, like, trying to say, oh man, he's injury prone and he can't stay healthy. And I mean, he had some unfortunate injuries, but the concussion that he had, the latest one, wasn't even his fault. It like happened at a production shoot because he just wanted to do the commercial himself instead of having a stunt person do it. And it's just a mishap. But I think Samoa Joe can still go in the ring. I think a lot of people thought he should have been WWE champion. I do think too. I think he should have beat Brock Lesnar that year at the what was that, the Great Balls of Fire pay-per-view. Definitely thought he should have won that. But yeah, man, Samoa Joe, like I can see him going anywhere. Like I can see him starting a podcast. I can see him, just maybe like he's already solidified himself as one of the best to ever do it. So I mean, if he doesn't come back, then I don't think anybody's gonna be like, he had a hell of a career, bro. And
Yeah.
if he wants to keep going, I'm pretty sure there's gonna be people knocking on his door from every which way forward. And I remember real quick, Joe Koff did an interview on the Our Way Strong podcast, and he said the idea has already been tossed out there and kind of heavily discussed of having a Ring of Honor Hall of Fame. And I was like, if there's anybody other than Bryan Danielson that deserves to be in that Hall of Fame, bro, it's Samoa Joe.
Yeah, it'll be one of the first ones if they do make that decision. But, to your point, we have to remember too, like Samoa Joe's 42. Like, I mean, again, Edge and Christian are 47. Like, that's the thing I kept saying during WrestleMania. It's like you look at Edge, I'm like, that guy's 47, Christian's 47. And we're seeing kind of what they're doing. Like, Samoa Joe's only 42. And I think, like you said, if there are injuries and it's a situation where maybe he just simply can't return to the ring or doesn't want to return to the ring at this time, there are so many other ways that he could be used by a variety of companies. And as we'll talk about most of these, I think Dave Meltzer reported that pretty much all the talent that are released do have the 90-day no-compete. So obviously it would be July 14th. I think that's, the July 14th for when they would actually be able to, sign with a company, debut somewhere else. So that's something to keep in mind with these. But I mean, Andrew, we have to say this. I mean, Samoa Joe in AEW feels like one of those, the most natural fit you could ever see. Just based on the roster, based on what you could do with him, and that's what I said, and that's why I find it very head scratching in that if this was a case, which we'll know more details. This is how it always works. We'll find out more details in the days to come, but if it was a case of WWE just saying, hey, we just don't really have a spot for this guy right now, I look up and say, okay, even if he doesn't wrestle, let's say he goes to AEW and he doesn't wrestle, you're telling me they couldn't find a spot for him on commentary, they couldn't find a spot for him as a manager, anything like that. Like, there are so many different things they could do with him to where I feel like that's just a complete no-brainer. And as we'll discuss too, we've said this a lot lately, and you've seen some criticism where AEW goes out and just picks up people from WWE, and all of a sudden everybody's like, oh, well, this is TNA and all this other stuff. I think it's a little different, and I especially think in this case, again, someone who's 42 years old and really one of the best in the business in terms of what he can do on the mic, what he could offer, I think, and we're going to probably draw that parallel to someone like Mickie James here in a second, but think about what Samoa Joe could offer to a younger roster like that of AEW. So.
Right. Hey, Blake, I gotta ask you, who gets the interview first, Jericho or Renee?
That's a great point, isn't it? Right. You were talking about starting podcasts. I was like, oh man, don't give Conrad any more ideas. I'm already transcribing every podcast that Conrad does for 411. But no, in all seriousness, you're right. Is it going to be Jericho or Renee? I don't know. I'm gonna go Renee. I think Renee gets it first.
I definitely think Renee is going to get the Samoa Joe. I think she's going to get Billie and Peyton for sure. I think she might get Mickie. I think Renee might do a clean sweep.
She might.
I think Renee might do.
Hey, and I was gonna say, like, listen, if you haven't listened to Renee's podcast, the Oral Session Spot, like, she does a really good job. I think it's not easy to transition. Like, and look, we know she was someone who was in a speaking role on WWE TV and all that, but she's always been someone, I think, naturally to have like conversations. That's why I thought that you talk about WWE and not being able to use someone maybe to a certain degree. Like, it just felt like there was so much more there with her too, in terms of what, the capabilities with her, but her conversations on there are so fascinating sometimes. And I think I'm with you. Like, I would love to see her make a sweep of all these people, maybe, because I think she would get some pretty good stuff out of them. So
I think the thing with Renee and her interviews is like the people that she brings on, for the most part, 9 times out of 10 or 8 times out of 10, she already has like a previously established relationship with them. So it's like, it makes it easier to just let that conversation flow, and like, because they already that comfortability is already set. So it's like, it's easier to just make it flow. Like, she's really talented, bro. Like, I like listening to her interviews a lot.
Yeah, she's fantastic. I would highly recommend anyone who hasn't maybe listened to him. I think she's up to probably 30 episodes or so now of her podcast. She's had a lot of great interviews. But yeah, be sure to check those out. And as we said, I have no doubt she's going to have some of these people on. I don't know how many it's going to be, but she's going to have some of them, I guarantee you. Let's talk about Mickie for a second, then we'll get to I mean, Mickie, and I think you put this on Twitter, Andrew. I was scrolling through the Twitter feed. You talked about how someone like her could really be an asset for, I mean, really any of these companies when you think about it, right? Because she's a veteran women's wrestler. I mean, look at the women's divisions. We've that's all we've talked about recently. It's just how they're improving in pretty much every company. You see all these different options, and I think for her, she's one which, like we'll talk about with most of these people, she's going to have no shortage of options just because she is a veteran. And I think we talk about wanting to learn under someone. I mean, what could Mickie James teach so many of these younger women stars? I mean, in some of these companies.
Yeah, bro. Can you imagine? Like, and I know, we just literally just said it. Not everybody can go to AEW, but like when you look at their women's division and the constant talk, you've heard Britt Baker talk about it publicly. Plenty of other talents in the division have talked about it, how the division is, they're growing. It's young and they're getting established, and that's why they starting to see they starting to come out more, man. And I'm specifically referring to the Jade Cargill and Red Velvet match. Like
Oh, yeah.
they got two future stars on their hands with Red Velvet and Jade Cargill. But like, can you imagine if Mickie James was able to bring her 20 years in the business to that locker room? Like, she can add a hell of a lot, and not even just from the mental standpoint, bro. People act like Mickie James still can't go. Like,
Right.
where did this come from? I think WWE they kind of did like a miss. Like, I think when she came to NXT, when she came back in 2016, I think that was the perfect re-debut for her. Like, have her come back, face Oscar, and then like she went and got called up and did the thing with Alexa Bliss. But it was always they positioned Mickie James as kind of like the side person. Like, she was
Yeah.
never she was always somebody's sidekick or somebody's manager. And I'm like, dude, Mickie James can still go in the ring. Like, y'all like wasting her years, but she could be out there doing this and doing that. Like, I remember it was even at one point when she started feuding with Alexa Bliss for the Raw Women's title. I was like, and they main evented the show. I was like, they need to put the title on Mickie. Like,
Yeah.
the crowd would go crazy for her. And like, I'm looking at Impact's women's division. Mickie can be a great asset there. Jazz is on her way out, and
Right.
maybe you insert Mickie right back into that spot that Jazz was in. Veteran, can go in the ring. Maybe she could chase out the title too. Like, the options are endless. But like we said off air, the ROH Women's World Championship tournament. Mickie James, like, she has a wealth of experience, bro, that a lot of people in the business, male or female, do not have. 20 years, been multi-time champion in TNA, been on the independents, been in WWE, made it. They build her as a legend, so she obviously is established. Like, if she'd been on WrestleMania before in women's title matches, like, come on, man. Like, she's going to be a major asset, and I'm pretty sure there won't be a shortage of people knocking on her door. And then at that, she can always head to the NWA.
Right.
I'm pretty sure that's always going to be an option.
Yes.
So like, yeah, Mickie is she's stamped in, bro. Like, she will be like half of these people on this list. Like, I'm not even like truly honestly like worried about. Like, I think they would be completely fine post WWE.
Yeah, and you brought up a good point. I was going to say, I mean, like with Dick Aldis, obviously, with the connection there, like she's not going to have shortage of options in terms of all the possibilities. Like, it may be something where she doesn't want to go to one place. Maybe she just sort of makes this tour around different places and
Hmm.
has a lot of different options. Like, we've seen that before. But you brought up another good point in that. Yes, anytime someone loses their job, like it's not good. Like, you don't want to see anyone lose their job. But we've said this before. For some of these people, it's probably, not the worst thing in terms of some of these people maybe not being used the way they wanted to be used, or were not happy in the roles that they were in. And I think, for some of these, we obviously can't tell you exactly how all these people were feeling. But I mean, for some of these stars that were released, it may actually wind up being a really good thing in terms of them finding a much better fit where they are able to sort of express, their creative ideas and all this other stuff. Like, that seems like the theme we've always discussed when it comes to AEW and all that. So I'm very curious to kind of see what it looks like for a lot of these different ones. And that, Andrew, we can sort of segue into Billie Kay and Peyton Royce, because I think they are the two. Again, very surprised because I mean we had just seen Billie Kay. I know they both bounced around after they broke up the Iconics, right? Like we know that. I think from the beginning, everyone said, "What is the point of this?" It's the WWE formula where sometimes they just break up people to break up people. You can find many different scenarios, and we have another one in here with Tucker where it's like, why'd you break up Otis and Tucker? Just to break them up. Like I feel like you had a draft, you have to do it. But Billie Kay and Peyton
Oh,
Royce.
Hey, Blake, I ain't mean to cut you off, but we got some breaking news on the podcast, my man.
What we got?
Got some breaking news. So you know Kenny Omega versus Rich Swann for the Impact World Title on April 25th, right?
Yes.
At Rebellion. Guess who will be on the call for that match?
Who?
Mauro Ranallo.
Oh, wow.
You're right.
Look at that.
So sources have told ESPN Mauro Ranallo, one of the top broadcasters in the combat sports.
Wow.
He will be on the call for the Impact Wrestling title match between champion Rich Swann and challenger Kenny Omega on the Rebellion pay-per-view card on April 25th.
What do you think about that? Like that's interesting,
crazy.
Right?
Yeah. So, I mean, I think Stryker and D'Lo have been doing amazing, but like you can't go wrong with Mauro.
No, not for a match like that too, right? Like we're talking about, I mean, like we're talking about a match that we never really thought we'd see. I mean, this is not one that we ever expected in terms of, just the whole build and everything that we've talked about, this crossover and everything. So, and then you're like bringing in a guy that you're associating with NXT before, and you're just like, man, wrestling is in a very interesting place right now, isn't it? Like you think about that and it's just like, man, we keep using this phrase and I know everyone's used it with the forbidden door and all that, but it's crazy, isn't it? Like how things have unfolded and you all these, like, think about this, Andrew. If a year ago we would have sat here and said Kenny Omega is going to fight Rich Swann on an Impact pay-per-view and Mauro Ranallo is going to be the one on commentary. Like just think about that. It's so crazy.
Yeah, I know, man. Like Mauro, I know a lot of people kind of give Mauro a little flack. You know what I'm saying? Because they don't like his commentary style. Maybe he used too many, like, people say he used too many pop culture references.
Right.
I like it. You know what I'm saying? Like I like the stuff he says. I think he's very energetic. I don't like hearing bland WWE commentator A who repeats the same stuff. Like you know what I'm saying? Like it's just like or like even with and no offense to him, but like Josh Matthews, I never found him like very enthusiastic, and the commentary was kind of it was so. But like I think they just they did a real upgrade with D'Lo and Matt Striker. But Mauro, like I can only imagine the energy that he is about to bring to this empty arena for this Kenny Omega and Rich Swann match. And since Mauro is calling this show, and Tony Khan has confirmed that he will be in attendance at Rebellion, I would not be surprised. I'm just saying. I don't know this is to be fact. I'm just throwing it out there. If Mauro Ranallo might be the voice behind that second TNT show that they talking about, that's hey. I'm just saying.
That's a good connection. I like it. You're thinking. No, I'm with you. Like I think and that's the thing with this whole deal, right? There's just so many possibilities, and I think the more I look at it, I really do feel like we're still like in the early stages of this thing. And what it probably started, months ago, but I'm like, you still look at all the different things. Like you've even heard, the Bucks and all this, like what they said on Dynamite, like everything sort of, surprises are still coming, all this other stuff. And I just feel like there's so much still to work with. And, it just, I don't know, like that gives you an aura of excitement that we haven't necessarily had in a long time. And I think that was the big thing when this, crossover started between those two companies in particular, but obviously we've seen it expand further too. But it's just like, I mean, look, it's the Jericho thing on Broken Skull Sessions too, right? It's just, I mean, this is just a wild west, really. I mean, when you think about it, like, it's so wild, all these different dynamics that are in play. But I'm very curious to see how that turns out because like you said, with Mauro, calling that match, I mean, that automatically gives you a different feel for the match now because it's going to be something so different.
I'm telling you, I really can't wait to see how Mauro. I'm pretty sure he hasn't lost a step at all because I mean he's obviously doing Showtime and stuff like that, and he's doing the Triller boxing fights with Snoop Dogg and all that stuff right there, man. So I'm pretty sure Mauro is excited to be back in wrestling. Like he always said, he did an interview with John Pollock actually a couple months back. And he was open about like, his experience in WWE, but he never seemed like he was like fully like, oh, I would never return to wrestling. Like he was just saying he was focusing on what he was doing right now. And I think it'll bring some extra eyes to Impact for people that miss Mauro's voice and want to see him again.
I mean, yeah, and we know WWE is a different animal, especially on commentary. Like we know kind of what the system's like, and Adnan Virk, he's probably someone that's starting to try to adjust to that system, and I don't think it's going to be one that won't necessarily be easy just because it is a different feel. I mean, if you're someone like those two who have called sports before, it's just such a different thing because you've got the Vince McMahon aspect, you've got producers, and you've just got so many different things. I think they sort of go along with it, so it'll be interesting. I'm fired up now about that because that's going to be one of those
Hmm.
where you already knew that you're already thinking about what could happen with this match and all of these other scenarios. But now when you add that dynamic in, certainly even more intriguing there. All right, Billie Kay and Peyton Royce, what do you think? Those were two, like we said, very surprised by them, getting released. One of those, as I said, I just think they broke them up just to break them up and all that. I don't really know that they had a reason, and clearly neither one of them did a whole lot without the other, and that's not knocking their talent. That's just kind of the WWE
Right.
formula. We've seen that, right? So, I mean, again, these are two that I don't think are going to have any shortage of options either.
I can see Billy and Peyton. I think they would fit great in Impact. I think that would be a nice suit for them. I think they can also do a good job of playing off crowds, but I don't know. I just got a feeling like them having the free reign to do as they please as far as their characters go and kind of bounce off of each other without having to memorize anything or just like free flowing. I feel like they're just a natural fit, and they've always been a natural fit. Like even I think a lot of people think back to that promo that they did at the Royal Rumble 2019 when Billie Kay did the whole "Are you joking me" for the first time with Kathy Kelly, and that thing went all over social media. Like she's obviously, bro, like just one of the on the fly, like one of the great people. Like if like even at the WrestleMania delay, when they had that, like if I was in charge, I was looking at the locker room with people who I can trust to go out there and entertain. I'm looking at Billy and Peyton for sure.
Yeah.
And honestly, bro, like even when they split them up, I know a lot of people immediately thought the singles thing was immediately for Peyton Royce, which it seemed like it was. But I think a lot of people really I don't want to say discount, but like they kind of slept on Billie Kay a little bit, like just her comedy skills and stuff like that. She can add a great deal. I feel like they are a solid tag team, and who says they won't be traveling to Independence, making the rounds. You never know. I'm pretty sure one thing on their bucket list to do is go back home to Australia and actually see their folks. I'm pretty I'm
Yes.
pretty I'm pretty sure that's one of the things. But yeah, man, I'm excited for both Billy and Peyton, and I can only imagine some of the stuff that they'll be able to do once they finish up their 90-day non-competes.
See, and that's exactly what I was going to say. Like this 90-day non-compete is actually can be a really good thing because
Yeah.
like you can refresh, like right. If you've been in the grind of WWE specifically, I mean, we're talking about that company and knowing, of course, this past year it's been different because you haven't been traveling and all that, but it's still, there's still a lot that goes along with it, and I think just getting away from that sort of scenario and that grind. At times can be a good thing, and that's where I think that 90-day no compete it allows you to sort of refresh, focus on whatever your next venture is going to be. And I think for them too specifically, I mean, there's an entertainment aspect there, and I think that's one of the things I brought up on Twitter. Is just for a sports entertainment company, how they did not sort of, or how they sort of undersold what they could do with those two from an entertainment standpoint. They did it for a while, but again, the breakup to me was just very very short sighted. And it didn't do either one of them any favors in terms of what they were able to kind of showcase with their talents. But Chelsea Green, let's finish off the women's list here. I mean, Chelsea Green, someone who we know injury played a role with her, and she made that debut on SmackDown, injured right after that, and but someone again. You think about the connections, with Matt Cardona and all that. I mean, she's one I think too is going to be a natural fit. Whether that's the connections, of course, with either Britt Baker or Deonna Purrazzo, or the friendship there with all of them. She's someone too that I think it's going to probably fit naturally right into one of those places, and really have a chance to be a part of any of the crossover type stuff that maybe those two companies do down the road.
Like with Chelsea, I see the thing is I don't think she just got a fair shake in WWE. And honestly, I don't even think it was more so of a thing with WWE per se with her. I think it was just maybe like, things just didn't work.
Yeah.
It's just, it was
Sometimes it's
just
just bad luck.
yeah,
I mean,
yeah,
really,
that
like that's what it comes down
yeah.
to. Yeah.
I think that's all. It was just like bad luck. Like I think that SmackDown that she debuted on, she broke her hand
Yep.
or someone broke her wrist. It's just like just bad luck. And then and I know at NXT they tried the whole thing like the Vixen thing with Robert Stone, and it hit a little bit, but it didn't really click. Um, I think Chelsea can fit in a number of spots. Like she has, I even felt like when she made that appearance on Raw, like she kind of stands out because she's tall, taller than the rest most of the women in the division. She kind of stood like height to height with Charlotte Flair. I think like she just has a good on screen presence. So I think there could be a lot of good things with Chelsea. Of course, she has a story, history, and impact. Um, like when you look at where she could go, I can see her, hitting the independents, racking it up over there. Like I mean, you could say AEW. I think you could like I think we kind of forget Chelsea is very experienced as well. Like
Yep.
not like she's some rookie, like she just hasn't been on TV. And I think that's the thing when you consider the fact that AEW could pick up some of these talents is that when they haven't been utilized in the ring, like you can kind of get away with the whole ex WWE person, type stuff. And even when people try to put that label on Samoa Joe, because I know it's gonna happen, somebody gonna try to say ex WWE, picking up ex WWE guy like Samoa Joe didn't have one of the best TNA runs of all time, and like he wasn't going to war with Kabashi and Ring of Honor and putting on some of the best matches in that company's history. Like this dude's only career started when he was in WWE or something. But yeah, man, like Billy and Peyton. I think Chelsea is going to carve out a nice post WWE career for herself. Who's to say that she won't get brought back to the company at some point? Because obviously they didn't get a chance to like use her or get a chance to at least see what things went because she got hurt.
Yeah, and that's something else too. Like, let's remember that they did release some people last year, and they did bring them back for some. We don't necessarily know if that's going to be the case for these, but that was something that at least they did entertain, I guess, a little bit last year. Maybe in different roles, but they did bring some of the people back for spots on TV and that kind of stuff. So that's something else. But I think, like we said, being Matt Cardona connections, I think Impact, like you said, would be a great spot for her. A history there. There's a lot you could do. So she's someone, again, just like the others. I don't think she's gonna kind of have a problem finding any spot there. Let's group these particular ones in together. And it's not to knock any of these guys, but it's just sort of you think about, like you said, not really having a featured role based on different circumstances. We mentioned Mojo Rawley. I mean, I think after the whole Rob Gronkowski thing, he just didn't, he's someone that I think they always, like, you could see him as like a Vince McMahon guy. Like, you could just, for whatever reason, like, you felt like at times Vince was really into him, and it just never got to that level maybe that they thought it would. He just kind of had a character that I think fit a certain role and was never going to be above that. And then you look at, Wesley Blake, of course, with the Forgotten Sons. That's an interesting dynamic when you think about how that whole thing's played out with them. And of course, Jackson Riker is being featured still in a featured role, but Wesley Blake and Cutler, those guys now out of the company. Kalisto, as we said, we've seen. I mean, with him, how long has Kalisto been there? Like, that was one of the things I was trying to remember. I feel like Kalisto was there for probably a lot longer than I thought he was. But like, he's someone too that, again, I can't say I'm shocked for him. And then Tucker, as we said, the whole Otis and Tucker thing, whenever they split, it was clear right away. I mean, literally right after they made the split, like he made the heel turn, and then they did absolutely nothing with him. They brought him out in that generic sort of, I don't even remember. I remember that match, but I'm trying to think of who it was against. But you immediately knew they had no plans for Tucker whatsoever.
Yeah, man. Tucker, like you said, you can immediately tell like what the situation was immediately when they did the split with him and Otis. I feel like I even feel like Otis was just the star coming out of that, and Tucker just didn't, he just didn't have a chance. And I don't really understand why they broke up Heavy Machinery, like, because it seemed like it was just pointless. But I mean, at the same time, like, maybe they just saw something in Otis that they didn't see in Tucker, and it's kind of obvious, what they saw. I think Otis is doing kind of just fine for himself right now, but Tucker, man, like, I don't necessarily know where I see him going after this. I can't really call it.
Yeah,
I'm pretty sure there'll be some demand, to have him on the independents, because he's a, that ex WWE name does always, it still brings people in a little bit, like maybe not as much as it did, maybe 5 or 6 years ago, but it still can bring a couple people in, or just for stuff like meet and greets and stuff like that. You just never know like how much attention that can draw. And Kalisto, like the thing is, bro, Kalisto, like I remember when he first got signed, and I remember people were like so amped about this dude. I forgot his like what he was called before he signed with WWE. But Kalisto was like a hot ticket. I remember
He
that.
signed in 2013. I just looked it up. He
Yeah,
has been there 8 years. Like that blows my mind. I did not. I think back. I'm like, all right, that makes sense. But 8 years. Wow.
yeah, that's a long time. That is a long time to be with a company, man. But yeah, Kalisto, he definitely like his run in WWE, I think he got the most out of it as he was possibly, going to get. Like I don't think it was going to be like Rey Mysterio level type, babyface underdog. I don't think they ever viewed Kalisto in that light ever. I think he had U.S. champion, tag team champion, NXT tag team champ. That NXT tag title run he had with who was that, Sin Cara?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was actually a very fun team. I enjoyed him and Sin Cara a lot. I can't remember which one it was.
They
That
had some good
what,
matches.
what,
Yeah.
what was that, Caristico, or was that Hunico?
Um.
I think it was Hunico.
Yeah. May have been.
Yeah, I think it was Hunico. But yeah, him and Sin Cara, they had a good tag title run. I think they kind of got the most out of Kalisto, to be honest with you. Like I think the only thing like left was to like stick him on 205 Live, and then like, I guess just have him ride it out there.
Yeah.
But what Mojo Rawley, I know he was doing like some charity work. Like he was doing like a lot of, kind of like in that Titus O'Neil role a little bit, like, doing all the special events, representing WWE at these, charitable stuff like that. He was doing a lot of that stuff. And I know he hasn't wrestled since June of 2020. And like, yeah, like you said, just with the, after the Rob Gronkowski thing, it was kind of like, it's
Yeah.
whatever. Like, I don't think Mojo ever really got the chance to like, I just don't think he clicked like in most so. I'm not gonna take a jab at his in ring skills or nothing like that, but I just don't think he ever just got the. Maybe he just didn't get the opportunity to like fully, go in there and try to, work out the kinks and stuff like that. But he
Yeah.
never. Mojo just never really clicked with me. Like I felt like it was at one point in like 2017 when it was him and Cardona on SmackDown, and it was kind of like, okay, maybe they got some legs. And I think Cardona had like a torn, he tore something in his knee or something like that and was out of action. So yeah, that seemed like the only, only time I was ever really into Mojo a little bit. Like I feel like it was done when they, remember when they put the blue paint on him? And he was,
Yes.
and he was staring in the mirror doing the promos. I was like,
Yes.
what the hell is going on, bro?
Yeah.
Like, what is going on?
That
But yeah,
character had so many limits. That's to say, like you were never seeing him above a certain level. And look, there's not, some guys make a living off of that. Like they stay in the
Yeah.
same level for you, but that was just one I don't think was ever really gonna click. So, and certainly without fans, right? If you're gonna play the hype character and you have no one around to get hyped, like that's a problem too, I guess. So
Yeah.
yeah, so that's kind of, I guess you said that list, that's an interesting group there, as we said. I mean, we talked about like someone like Tucker. It's like we've only really seen him in a certain role, so it'd be interesting to see kind of what his next move is. All right, we're going to finish off with Bo Dallas because Bo Dallas, like he's someone too that you think of all the connections, certainly, the family ties with Bray Wyatt and all this other stuff, but Bo Dallas is one of those ones that I think back to. Of course, he's been there for a long time. But he was another one where it's like you look at sort of the ups and downs for him. Like he was, I don't know, like sometimes I have to remind myself, I'm like, this guy really had like a very, like he was really over at one point. Like people were really into this guy, the Bo Leave stuff and all this other thing. But another one, not surprised, we haven't really seen him being used a lot. I think I saw one of the reports where he was even kind of considering not even continuing with wrestling, maybe getting into some other stuff. So that's one that probably, too, you kind of chalk up as not very surprising, just given the limited use there.
Yeah, with Bo, the thing was like he was just like one of those guys that came up from NXT that was over and just never really flourished or really found his footing on Raw and SmackDown. Like he had like I see. I think the thing with the Miz Taraj, I think that was decent, and I think it was a way to get him and Curtis Axel on TV, and it did do some good because they won the Raw tag titles I think a couple times, and it was good for what it was. But I don't know, but I think Bo's gimmick maybe it just didn't click all the way on the main roster, like the whole Bo leave thing. Like it seemed like more of an act to get like attacked by a legend,
Right.
like or something like that. But in NXT, it worked. It was so over. Like he had like one of the longest NXT title runs of all time. Like Bo Dallas was and the thing was like I think people really forget how talented he is in the ring because you never saw him like really wrestle outside of the occasional tag match or him getting squashed by wrestler A or wrestler B. You know what I'm saying? It was just never. It just never really got he just never really got the chance to like fully show what he can do in the ring outside of his body of work in NXT. And I'm excited to see what he's gonna do. Isn't Bo Dallas? How old is Bo Dallas? What he's like 30?
I was gonna quiz you on that. He is 30. Like
He's 30.
I think I
Young.
would have thought he was way older than that. I don't know exactly what I would have said, but I would not have said 30.
Yeah, Bo is young, man. Like he got years ahead of him. And I remember I can't remember. I hate when I do this when I can't remember who reported it because I like giving people their
I
credit.
know.
But I remember I saw something out there when somebody was like he was like studying for like some type of like some career after wrestling. It was like a very important like position or something like that or a career choice job field that he was that he was looking after. So yeah, hopefully all that works out for him. But I definitely think Bo still has ways to go in wrestling. Like only being 30, like come on, man.
Yeah.
Like you 30, like you come like that's what most people peak in wrestling. To be honest with you, like you got plenty left to go. And oh, you want to know what? I always thought that they should have always tried to pair Bo and Bray together,
Yeah.
like as a brother duo. Like I never understood why they never went that route. I feel like it could have done him some good to be paired with Bray and get some of that the reaction that Bray got. And I think Bo could have really flourished kind of in that sinister dark character maybe.
I had looked it up. So Bo Dallas, and this is from the Wrestling Observer newsletter. So Meltzer reported this back in February that he and Liv Morgan, who they have a farm, they live together. They started a real estate business. So that I think that's the focus for him is basically preparing for life after wrestling. So yeah, that was from February. So apparently, that was already something that he's been working on. And at least according to this, basically he just was never like they weren't even bringing him into TV tapings or anything like that, which again, not surprising. They were just probably, I guess, just paying him to pay him. And so I guess that's one probably not too surprising either, just based on the fact of the limited usage there. But Andrew, that's the group of people, at least as of right now, that have been released. And of course, hopefully there are not more added to that list. But as we said, there's lots of possibilities for those that have been released. But I guess we can wrap up with what we were going to talk about originally. And that was just sort of the fallout from WrestleMania. What did you think overall? And maybe what are the things that intrigued you most here as we move forward?
So firstly, that Raw after WrestleMania was horrid.
Oh my goodness! It has to be the worst. Okay, let's just say this: maybe it's not the worst Raw after WrestleMania ever, but in the era where they promote the Raw after WrestleMania as such a big deal, like I think it was clearly the worst.
Yeah, it was bad. I almost fell asleep a couple times, but and I got to cover the show at that. But from WrestleMania, like this is what I don't get about WWE, right? They do some of the build to WrestleMania. I think was shit. Outside of a few, I'm a part of my language. It was bad. Outside of a few matches, right? They get to WrestleMania, and most of everything is good. I'm like, so like why can't you come up with like good storylines leading up to it if the end result is gonna be good? Like Rollins and Cesaro thoroughly enjoyed that, and I don't know what they got planned, Blake, but I genuinely hope that they heard that reaction that Cesaro got from that crowd.
Right.
Like it would be foolish, like if they didn't try to do something. I'm not saying they got to be at the WrestleMania Backlash show next month, but I'm definitely looking at Cesaro for like a Money in the Bank or one of the following pay-per-views. Like he is over. He is really really over. And then you got somebody like Big E who got the massive reaction. Like I think a lot of people view Big E as that next challenger to Reigns, but if I was them, I would hold off on E until we get fans back.
Yeah.
Because I don't feel like it's gonna hit the same if we just do it like in the in the Thunderdome. I think you need people present to like openly root for Big E. I was glad to see that people were booing Roman because like that's finally the reaction that they wanted for him to get booed, and it was like actually like character boos and not we were tired of seeing you boos. Bianca Belair and Sasha Banks, that match was amazing,
Yeah.
dude. Like that was my match of the 2 night WrestleMania shows. Like that was amazing. That was a special moment to see them see them kind of shed tears at the beginning. It meant a lot to me to see that, two black women
Yeah.
headlining the WrestleMania. That was special. Like legit. I'm happy for them as individuals that they got to have that moment, and especially seeing Sasha Banks smiling and stuff after the match was over. I think a fan caught like a video of her when she was, just looking up at Bianca holding up in the title in the ring. I think that was really cool. Says a lot about Sasha. And yeah, man, Bianca, like it's no way they can mess her up. It's no way. Like she's too.
Don't say that, Andrew. Don't say that.
but she's too charismatic, man. She's got too much like star power, and she connects with a variety of audiences. Like I'm going to be very attentive to how they build her because like WWE, they do not have a good track. Well, let me say main roster WWE, they do not have a good track record of building up babyface champions.
Yeah.
It is 9 times out of 10, 8 times out of 10. It never goes well. Even with Kofi Kingston, like the thing that they started rubbing me the wrong way, Blake. Like when they came out of WrestleMania and they immediately jumped into I forgot who it was. It was either Dolph Ziggler.
Yeah.
Oh, somebody, and I'm like, dude, come on, man. Like we need hot, fresh opponents for Kofi. Somebody they can feed off of, and the crowd started turning on him because of that. And I'm like, that's why I think they should really start stacking up the right opponents in order for Bianca. Like, maybe a Liv Morgan here, like maybe whoever next, and then you eventually build to the Bayley title match, and then maybe you do a Sasha Banks rematch at SummerSlam. You need to like build this stuff strategically, and I hope they do that, for Bianca. And just looking outside the card, I was extremely surprised that Bobby Lashley retained. I had 100% thought that Drew McIntyre was going to get his moment in front of the fans, but I'm actually glad Lashley retained. But then I'm also like, why the hell would you break up the Hurt Business if he was just going to retain the title? I thought the whole point of him, breaking up the Hurt Business was like further build heat on him and make him more out the bad guy, so he eventually, so the crowd would be like, oh, you broke up the Hurt Business, now you lost the title. But he ended up retaining, and then now they got Mason T-Ball running around with him. Like I'm, yeah, but that's like kind of my general thoughts about WrestleMania.
Yeah, you brought up one of the things I was going to bring up about how they book champions who win, and of course babyface champions at WrestleMania. Like you can go back to the Daniel Bryan thing, I think at WrestleMania 30, where out of that he just, that was such a huge story, and he just never felt like, which the injury stuff played a role too, but it just, you never felt like they could capture anything close to what they did, and they immediately put him in something that people weren't necessarily interested in all the way, and I think it's the same thing like you said with Kofi, and now with Bianca. You just hope that they find the. And I mean, I say this like I was really thinking about this the other day, Andrew. WWE would be the best company in the world if you just let them have 12 pay-per-views a year and didn't do Raw and SmackDown or any other shows. Like just watch the pay-per-views. If you don't watch anything else, like you could really have a good time. But then I think you just come out of it sometimes and you see kind of what they do with some of these TV shows because they have all these hours to fill, and it's just like the stories don't grab you. And I think that's the thing. And like you said, even going into WrestleMania, there were just certain things that you just weren't absolutely glued to, but you knew they were going to be good matches. And I think that's at least what they usually deliver on when it comes to their pay-per-views. So I'm curious. I mean, I'm with you. I think the Bianca Belair thing was the one thing for me that really stood out in terms of, like, she is a total star, like, in every possible way. I think that it really would. Like, hopefully they have a actual idea of what they're going to do with her, for the next 3 months, although we know sometimes they don't know within the next 3 hours what they're going to do, but I would hope there's some sort of direction for someone like her, because that was such a huge moment, and it's such a defining win in her career, and I really hope that to me, and that's not to take away from anyone else, we know they've got plans for Roman Reigns. I have no doubt about that. We know they have plans probably for Lashley, which we kind of saw some of that play out on Raw. But I really just hope that Bianca one is the one that they really have a good, clear picture, because they have, gone back and forth a lot with some of these, as you said, when you have these champions who win, they get their big moment, but then everything kind of falls flat after that, and it takes away maybe what they had already accomplished. So I hope they have some sort of clear idea of where they're going with her.
Yeah, 100%. I just I really hope they get it right with Bianca, man. Like I really do. Like you got this big moment. Like she has all the momentum. Only thing you got to do is follow up on it with solid, consistent storylines and solid opponents to line up against her. Do not run the Sasha Banks rematch on Friday, please. Do
No,
not,
yes.
don't do that. Please do not do that. Like they and like I know we talking about Bianca right now, but I do want to touch on the Rhea Ripley Oscar match. Like I'm gonna keep it real, bro. Like those were not good.
Yeah,
Like
it was
it
not as good
was
as I thought it would be.
yeah,
No.
it was not good. But I also think that has something to do with, the lack of, of course, the chemistry they have. They don't have chemistry, I don't think. And then at the same time, it's like the lack of live events. Because back, when before pre-COVID, on the road to WrestleMania tours, you would be working the individual that you were going to be facing at WrestleMania most of the time, and then you would be have
Yeah.
these tag team matches, and you guys would be able to fill each other out like 7 weeks, you know, 3 days a week, 7 days for 7 straight weeks on the weekend, before you even got to WrestleMania, so you were able to fill each other out. And I think the last time Rhea and Oscar wrestled when Rhea was like a teenager, like when she was in Japan or something like that. So it just didn't work. And then the match on Raw, it was the match on Raw was worse. Like I was like, goodness
Yeah,
gracious,
it was
bro. Like
bad.
they just don't have chemistry. And like I did have a comment on it, but like I've like listened to interviews before where we talked about like she her mental health and stuff like that, bro. And I was just like I'm gonna just keep it. I say it on the podcast. I'm
Right.
not gonna tweet that because I don't want to add to that. I know wrestlers vanity search. You know what I'm saying? I don't want to add to that. Conscious stuff that she got, going on, and I don't want to, So
Yeah.
that's why I'm gonna just keep it to myself. But yeah, those matches were not entertaining at all. Like and dude, with Oscar, man, like I don't get it. Like the thing is, Blake, you can't even really call it her run in WWE a failure. Cause like she's been a multi-time SmackDown Women's Champion,
Yeah.
multi-time Raw Women's Champion, Tag Team Champion, Money in the Bank, Royal Rumble. I think she did Elimination Chamber. Like, dude, she's literally done everything. She's been at WrestleMania, had one of the best matches at WrestleMania 34. Like, she's literally done everything. Like, you can't. Longest that NXT title run is like heralded. So like, you can't even really call it a failure. But it's like she's been in some of like the worst
Yeah.
storylines. Like, it's either she's neither the focus, or like they just need her to get from point A to point B or point C. Like even when she was SmackDown Women's Champion, when she won the title, that was the show that Ronda came and like ruined the match for Becky and,
Yeah.
and Charlotte, I think. And that's all everybody was happy for Oscar, but it was like at the same time, oh, that where they going with this? And then they took the title off Oscar, um, but before that WrestleMania, and I think she was supposed to face Sonya Deville. I think a lot of people kind of wanted to see that. I wanted to see that, but yeah, man, I don't get it with Oscar. It's like, but at the same time, I think about it. I'm like, she has done a lot in WWE. You can't
Yeah.
really call it a failure, but like her run has just not been good since she got caught up in 2017, bro.
No, and I think it's, I don't know what it is, and I'm with you. Like I've always said, I think she's one of the best in the world in terms of just what she can do, and it's just for whatever reason, like you said, it's just been so up and down. And you can look back to the WrestleMania match with Charlotte. Now that's another thing too. I think about. I wonder where like the Charlotte thing factored into the match with like Rhea and Asuka this year, because she had to be factored into the plans at some point. And whatever reason that she was taken out of it, I don't know, but I think that's something too to think about. But yeah, sometimes you just have the chemistry that's not there, and at least we've seen that thus far. But I mean, too, I don't think they've done Rhea any favors either. I mean, that promo on Raw, I thought was just a great example of that. Like it was scripted to the T. Like everything she said, it felt like she was just, and a lot of people pointed it out on social media, but like it just felt so robotic. And that's not on her. Like that's just on how they want to do things, and present, people like that. And I think it's just that raw emotion and that sort of raw energy you've got in NXT. You haven't gotten that thus far with her on the main roster. But you know what, Andrew, we could say that about so many different people that have come up over the years too. So I think that's definitely one of the noteworthy things
And
coming out
Blake,
of it.
I was gonna ask you, did you think the original plan was Lacey versus Charlotte at WrestleMania?
You would think so, right? I mean, I guess that would have had to been in the works because they were building that up, and then you had the Lacey thing, and she gets pregnant, and good for her. But it's just like it's one of those where you assume that was the case, and maybe they actually had some sort of awareness that if they would have sort of shoehorned Charlotte into that match with Asuka and Rhea, I just don't think that would have went over well. Because for whatever reason, Charlotte has a lot of her detractors, and we know that she's still one of the best they have. But it's just a
Hmm.
matter, I don't think people would have liked that because that's the thing too, right? Like the Rhea and Asuka thing was a fresh matchup. Like it was like, oh yeah, that could be really good. Like you haven't seen this, and we don't say that a lot in WWE. Like we're like, oh, we see these every single week. We see the same matches 3 months in a row. So this felt like something fresh, but like you said, it's just sort of in the execution, maybe it wasn't necessarily what we thought it would be.
Yeah.
But, well, Andrew, this has been a lot of fun, man. I know it's been a very busy day for you covering everything over at Post Wrestling. Like I said, there's so much going on right now. It's always hectic after WrestleMania during that week, but especially now, as we said, 2 years in a row on April the 15th, WWE makes some huge releases. But, Andrew, before we hop off here, obviously the floor is yours. You guys have so much great stuff over at Post Wrestling. You also have your Andrew Thompson interviews channel on YouTube. Let everybody know what you have going on over there and where they can find you on social media.
Yeah, man, I appreciate it. As Blake said, you can check out my YouTube channel, Andrew Thompson interviews. Yeah, I got some stuff up there. I think I got some good interviews that I think a lot of people enjoy. I try to upload some clips on the weeks when I don't have interviews posted, so you can check out some past stuff, some interesting clips that I from past interviews that I conducted. And yeah, you can check out my written work over there at postwrestling.com. Be sure to check out everything on Post Wrestling. A lot of good content from all people involved. And you can follow me on Twitter at AD Thompson __ for my my non pro wrestling. Well, as a matter of fact, I do have some pro wrestling takes on there, but then you can also come and see my MTV's The Challenge takes as well.
That's right. Check it all out over there. That's what you come for. That's what everybody wants, Andrew. So don't sell yourself short on that. But yes, like you said, you got so many interviews up. You've interviewed so many people. There's just a ton. Check that out. We'll link it in the show notes and all that good stuff. But Andrew, as always, I appreciate it, and we'll look forward to catching up with you again here soon.
Yeah, I appreciate you having me on, Blake. It's a good time as always, man.
You got it. And that is Andrew Thompson. And thanks as always for listening to the 411 on Wrestling podcast. Be sure to subscribe. Any podcast app you use, just search for 411 on Wrestling. Check out everything we got going on over at 411mania.com. All our reviews, our news, written, live coverage, columns, all kind of stuff. Check it all out, 411mania.com. Thanks again for listening, and we'll talk to you next time here on the 411 on Wrestling podcast.